Studies in lead worship. Whoa. You serious, Tony? Whoa.
Well, Tony, my empathy, sympathy goes out to you. That sounds like a hard road to walk, and I imagine that you run into frustrating or difficult situations on a frequent basis. That
I would love to talk to you, Tony Beam. Is there any way you'd come on and you don't have to show your face? Or would you be scared even to have your voice out there?
Do you enjoy it, Tony?
Let's see if we can get Tony on here. Oh, you want to come on, Tony? Hang on, let me claim the room. I think does I think I would mean that he wants to come on?
Might have been in response to what I asked. But hopefully.
It's the leading worship part that made me go whoa the most.
That might just, yeah. Do you play a musical instrument, Tony? Is that why?
Well, when I hear leading worship, I mean like front and center. Are you a front and center worship leader?
I've noticed though that like worship teams, in particular the musicians, quite often will be less committed to the belief than other people.
Tony, is the reason why you can't come on because of sound? Like you don't want anybody to hear you where you're at? Because I have a solution for that too. You could come on and just type, but it would be live typing. Because you could come on here, not show your face, we won't even hear you, but everything you type would be live and immediate to us, to me and Cam. Okay, let's do it. So, this is what you do. Make sure your when you come on here, you will immediately, the default position is you'll immediately be on video. So what you do is put something over your camera, and then you can press the video button second, and then it will turn your video off, and you can turn your audio off. So when you come on, don't say anything. Make sure your camera's covered. And what you're going to type into your Google browser is appear.in/flawless-cat. So appear, appear.in/flawless cat, but there's a hyphen between flawless and cat. Here, I can't type. I'll type it in.
But do you want me to type it in the chat?
I'm in there, but no spaces. I'm putting spaces in because otherwise.
Yeah, otherwise it doesn't work.
So type that in your browser, Tony, but without the spaces. Yeah, this is very interesting to me.
So, what was the conclusion of this? That William Lane Craig uses an unreliable method to conclude that Jesus rose from the dead?
Yeah, the conclusion is I am right, William Lane Craig is wrong. Oh, here we go. Okay, hang on a second. Let's see. I have to rearrange stuff. Let me make myself a little smaller. Yeah, feel free to type something in, Tony, just to make sure. So on the right side, there's the text thing. Oops, I got to redo this. Okay, so I'm good, but now I need to redo cam. So Tony, can you try typing something? You see where the... Yeah, there you go. Okay, that's what I kind of thought. Tony says that... And Tony, I'm assuming you're a male because it's Y at the end and not I. Okay, so I'm going to put the text chat in here so everybody can see. Look at that.
Beautiful. So, Tony, you definitely can't do audio?
Yeah, you can do both. You can choose anytime.
Not right now. Okay. Cool.
Okay, so my first question is, how long have you been a closet atheist? How many months or years? 10 years.
Wow.
Wow. Are you currently married? You said you have a daughter, but are you married? And is your wife a believer? And are you closeted to her? Or your wife's not a believer either. Is she closeted as well? Okay, so you're not closeted to her. And my guess is she's closeted as well, if you are, or sort of. So it's interesting, Tony, you are probably this, well, I wasn't an atheist 10 years ago, but I was starting to doubt 10 years ago. What, can you think back 10 years ago and think what started the ball rolling for you, for your unbelief? Because that's the ultimate question I love to ask people who used to be Christians or Muslims. And
I just wanted permission to do immoral acts.
I was just devoted to an honest understanding of reality, and I started investigating and learning about the arguments. Yeah, that's very similar to me. It was very much... I remember when I started coming out of Christianity, that was when Hitchens was in his prime, Harris was in his prime, internet, YouTube was just really taking off, and with atheism at least. And I started thinking and totally understanding the other side, the other point of view. It took a couple years for me to admit to myself that I was more in agreement with the atheist side than the theist one. Yes, that's exactly what happened to me. Because I remember thinking, some of the things Hitchens and these other guys were saying made sense. I get that. And even though there was so many things I disagreed with and I thought was just blasphemy, I just thought, but wait a minute. What he's saying here just really resonates with me.
So is there a particular piece of evidence or type of evidence about the world that you thought was just incompatible with your previous belief? Or was it kind of a culmination of lots of different arguments?
Oh, you want to be a pastor?
Mm.
Believe it or not, I did too. I think I would have been a really good one too. I started to learn in order to justify my belief. Yeah, that happens. Oh, Tony, mute yourself. That way we can't hear you type.
The typing gives us additional
Oh yeah, I guess.
tactic.
But just in case something happens in the room you don't want us to hear. I read a book called Atheism, the Case Against God. Who wrote that book?
Is that the Nick Trakakis one? Oh, no.
George Smith. Okay, I got to ask this. How confident are you, Tony, that no one in your church knows? Like, how closeted do you think you really are?
That's a good question.
Thank you. That's what I do here.
I thought it was a pretty Facebook. You'd be fired if anyone knew.
Huh.
So that means to say you're pretty confident because you haven't been fired.
I don't know.
How confident are you that you'd be fired if anyone knew? Sorry. No, I imagine you're pretty justified in that belief.
But okay, let me ask you this though, Tony. I'm projecting a little bit from my past life, but do you think that even some of them maybe don't think you're an atheist, but think you're verging on being a backslidden Christian or too skeptical? Or is there anything that you're giving off that might make them suspect that you're not totally on board with the status quo? And by the way, I'm not closeted anymore. I think everyone who I care about knows. Maybe I come off as an uneducated Christian? Really? Why would you come off as an uneducated Christian after fully delving into the arguments?
Do you play dumb?
Oh, yeah, maybe on purpose. There's an element of spiritual guidance to my job. Oh, really? Okay. If you play dumb a lot, on a scale of 1 to 10, well, yeah, we all are in some areas of our life. I mean, we can't know everything. But on a scale of 1 to 10, how happy are you right now? No, that's a terrible question. On a scale of 1 to 10, how content are you doing what you're doing? In other words, pretending. How much longer can you keep this up? 10 being you're very content, 1 being you're not content at all. Can't handle it much longer. Yeah, 10 years is a long time. Okay, well, there's like 1,000 questions rolling in my brain right now. Do you get paid a lot of money? Because for me, if I was in your position, and
right, so you kind of got pulled into it.
But to me, if I was in your position, the number one criteria of whether or not to leave the church would not be money, but that my spouse is on board with me. And it seems like your spouse would be, or maybe not. Does your wife want you to keep the charade going? For, health insurance reasons, practical reasons, or... Ah, okay. So is the plan that if once your wife gets a job, you're out? Yeah, that's what I thought.
It sounds like you have some useful skills, though, being that the position you are within the church involves things not directly related, well, not only related to Christianity.
Hey, Tony, I got an idea for you. It's a little bit. I was going to say it's a little bit playing with fire, but I don't think it is. I think it's pretty safe. So here's my idea. Are you familiar with street epistemology? I hate that term. Are you oh, you love SE.
Doug doesn't hate that term anymore.
Well, I like the concept. I hate the term. I hate the word street because I've never done street epistemology, but I've done online epistemology questions. So have you asked questions, a lot of questions, getting to the epistemology of your fellow friends, your fellow believers, or I guess not your fellow believers, but the believers that you work with? You're a moderator of the SE subreddit. That's funny. So
I think I've uploaded some of your comments and stuff.
So have you done SE in your church with your fellow workers? And how did that go? Have you raised doubt in your fellow coworkers? Yeah, you have to be careful. Do you sometimes role play as an atheist? Really being an atheist? Because if I was in your position, I would do that a lot. I would say, hey, like, let me role play being an atheist, and how would you answer these questions?
Oh, this is some subversive shit. You should probably leave your job.
In a very small way, I'm envious of Tony because he's in a situation where he can just, the leaders of the church really question them. The high school youth pastor has a law degree and is a great debater. Sometimes they challenge him with interesting questions. Oh, yeah. Gotta watch out for those lawyers. But, SE is not about debate, right? It's about, I said right again. Stroke that from the record. It's about just asking questions, not making claims. You can't debate if you're not making claims.
I think you can.
Well, yeah.
See, this is the one of the things about. I mean, I'm kind of derailing, but SE, like each time you ask a question, you're effectively revealing what I would call a prior about your belief, because you wouldn't ask the question if it weren't the fact that you thought that something that the question points towards is contrary to what the person believes.
No, that's not always true, though. Because there's sometimes I will...
Maybe not always true. But
there's oftentimes where I will enter their worldview and ask questions from that standpoint, which is contrary to my worldview. And I think that can even be more powerful. So when I enter in the Christian worldview and then ask basically almost like one Christian, role playing a Christian and asking questions from one Christian to another, challenging our own worldview.
Yeah, but I think the point that I'm making is that like you wouldn't really ask the question if you really agreed with them.
Oh, wow. I'm reading the comments in YouTube. Okay, so back to Tony here. How do you think most of your friends define faith? Do they just use the biblical definition, Tony, or do they or maybe the better question is, how do they practically use that term faith? Because I've really backed off even. Yeah, exactly. They have different definitions based on context. Because it seems to me that the definitions of faith, excuse me, of faith are so varied that even when the word comes up, I just don't let Anthony Magnabosco hear this, but I just move on. Like that word it's not a trigger word for me, as it is with some ears. Some use it as a verb, some use it as a noun, and even as a verb they differ, as nouns they differ. Yeah, it's I think faith represents a flawed epistemology. And but if they're just using faith as another word for my religious belief or something that I believe strongly, I really can't say anything against that. That's just, they're just stating faith is another word for Christianity, or faith is another word for I just believe this. Actually, I think what I just said is what most people, how they use the word faith. I just believe this, no matter what. It's that.
Yeah, I feel like most of the time they're saying, but this is my religion.
Yeah. I still find it hard to believe, Tony, that you've been there for 10 years as a closeted atheist and that no one suspects.
That's pretty impressive.
Or you believe that no one suspects.
Have you ever thought about getting a job within the government?
CIA?
CIA.
Early, I was a lot more honest. So you suspected then, by being honest, that they were suspecting of you, and so you backed off the honesty. I'll ask him that question, Mike. When I first started my job, was pulling weeds and moving chairs. Mask, how old you are, Tony? $30. Okay. Can you tell me what type of church it is? Like what flavor of Christianity? So they almost view you as this backslidden Christian, or maybe an atheist when you were mowing and pulling weeds, but then when you kept going, working for the church, you transitioned to the more serious Christian in their view. Then got promoted. Yeah, that's what I thought. So do you have to hide certain aspects of your life outside of church? In other words, are there things, do you behave like Mike Hines is asking in the YouTube chat? If I just saw you on the street or became a friend of yours and had no idea that you worked for a church, could I tell that you weren't a Christian? Like, let's say my assumption was that you were. Is there anything that you do in your life?
Well, I mean, he moderates the SC subreddit.
Yeah, I guess the church you work at is very legalistic. So that means
is not very.
Oh, not very legalistic. Oh, that means it's charismatic.
Is it like grace-based?
Non-denominational, yeah. Calvary Chapel type. Ah. You don't have to confirm or deny if that's the denomination. But I used to go to a Calvary Chapel type church. Yeah. What I didn't like about Calvary Chapel churches, the pastor would poo-poo college education all the time, and that bothered me. Especially because I had 3 degrees. Oh, really? Good. Is there any chance your pastor would want to come talk with me on my YouTube channel? No chance at all? Why is that? He's too famous? Too famous for me?
But didn't you say he's a pastor of a mega church? How mega?
I think a mega church has to have at least 10,000 members. A small city. 5,000, okay. So
that's pretty famous, but it's not internet famous.
But have you watched any of my interviews, Tony? And how would your pastor handle a guy like me? Yeah, hang on a second. Actually, when I turn off the stream, you can... oh, I know. Hang on. You can send me a private link. Okay, the text is off. Send it now. And then I will... Oh, you're kidding me. I'm familiar with that. Everybody in YouTube is going, what is he? Okay, hang on. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is get rid of that text. Was there another link you needed to send me, or can I put it back on? Okay, hang on, don't worry, you're safe. It's gone. Okay, don't type anything you don't want to have seen. Let me put this back on. Okay. There, that was painless. I can't tell you without
giving it away.
Interesting. Well, I hope, Tony, that you well, I could be totally wrong about why I'm familiar, because the name, when you typed it, just set off something that I know, but yeah, I could be wrong. I could know nothing about your church and just have affiliated it with something else. Because that's all I can say on the live stream anyhow. But I hope you get out soon, because I think it's better to live honestly. I mean, to yourself, not that you're lying to people. Well, in a way you are, but I would think you will have so much more peace, joy, contentment. You'll be born again. You'll be born again.
Might be a bit over the top, Doug.
You'll be born again, and you'll be free to proselytize the gospel of doubt. I just love using that language. I guess to make you feel better about totally lying to people is that you have kids, you said, right? So you have a greater good type thing issue to deal with, and that is you don't want to, have no income. Okay. Well, yeah, and as an atheist, why would you feel morally conflicted? Because you don't have any basis for your morality.
Yeah, like I said before, I became an atheist because it just gave me privilege to do whatever I wanted.
But did you feel the same thing I felt, Tony, like when you became an atheist? That it felt like a burden had been lifted? And that you were... Yeah, but you were 20, right, when you became an atheist, so you were very young. I was 35. Well, actually, I was 40. Actually, I was 43, because I went from Christianity at 35 to deism by 40 to atheist probably 43, 44. A long transition. It's very unusual. I'm a freak of nature.
In more ways than one.
Yeah, we won't mention my T count, but...
Well, you just mentioned it.
But I think,
See, for me, it would have been probably easier being a Christian. I don't think like a weight was lifted for me at all. So I don't think it's going to be all the same for atheists. But I guess that was more because of my personal situation. Being married to a...
Yeah, how old were you when you got married, Tony? How do you feel about me? Do you think I should be morally conflicted? So you got married at 27. Okay. So did you marry a believer? As an atheist? Oh, you were kind of forced to get married? Okay. I think I know what that means. Okay, good. Good for you. Because that's one thing I agree with the theists or the Christians and the Muslims is not to be unequally yoked.
I don't think you should be, but I mean, the part that I would suggest is, a bit of an issue is if you are encouraging people to question their faith under the sort of guise of being a leader, and like if your behavior differs in any way to what another leader would do, and your influence, like, and your like social authority and your authority within the church makes people go away from their faith. I mean, ultimately, it's a good thing. I mean, I would rather people that didn't believe, but I think it is problematic to do so without being upfront about what you actually believe.
I'm at your church website right now.
Right.
See, okay, but Cam, if I was in Tony's situation, no, I'm. Oh, you think so? You think? Can you see any reflection off my glasses, Cam?
I can't. No.
Okay.
You can off mine a bit, but I'm not looking at the website. So.
Oh yeah, I don't. Yeah, Cam and I are in two different places. So, but if I was in your situation, Tony, I would be so tempted to raise doubt. Because I think even if I was a Christian, talking to other Christians, it's okay to raise doubt. Because if what you believe is actually true, you have nothing to be scared of.
But if you were a Christian and you were in that kind of mind frame of wanting to raise doubt in people, you probably wouldn't be in a position of leadership or authority. And so, like, yeah.
Well, if the Clergy Project is any indication, what's the number? I think 1 out of every 20 pastors leading a church is actually an atheist.
Yeah. But most of them like weren't initially, and then they can't get out of it, or well, it's not that they can't, but it's very hard for them to get out of it because they have no like marketable skills outside of being a leader of a faith group. And they become financially dependent on the church and their job in the church, and leaving becomes, has negative consequences in that respect, which I can understand more of.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with your pastor. So do the people in your church think your wife is a believer? And when you got married, didn't your church marry you to? Or did you get married in Vegas? And is her family in that area? Like, wouldn't they know and could tell people? Or is your wife's family like 2,000 miles away in Canada? Oh, wouldn't that be great if his wife was a Canadian? I could say I'm clairvoyant. Her parents are reclusive. Oh, that's great. That's what you want to look for in in-laws.
What?
Seriously. My advice.
Why?
My advice to young people out there: if you can marry an orphan, do it.
Oh, that's harsh.
What, orphans need to be married too.
No, but I mean, like, what's so bad about in-laws, Doug?
I don't know. I just.
No, you don't have to answer that.
Actually, both my in-laws are dead, so.
Right.
And I have an alibi for both. It wasn't me.
Sure you do. But I think that it's wrong to stay within a church when you've lost your belief if other people don't know that you've lost your belief. The degree to which it's wrong is probably dependent on how you behave or what reason you have for staying.
I wanted to take this opportunity to encourage atheists to go to church. Okay, so Tony, I don't know how long you've been on my channel, but my wife's a believer. Do you think I should go to church with my wife? And if so, why? If you've watched any of my videos, you know how potentially frustrated I could get. Because all these questions and...
In fact, Doug has a series of videos called Why I Don't Go to Church.
Yes. Have you seen any of them, Tony? I've like...
which is about justifying why he doesn't go to church. I know that's not the framing you would use. So I went to church with my wife when I was an atheist, but just not regularly. Every once in a while.
See, but here's why I can't go to church. Because I would walk in those doors I would see all these fake smiles. Some of them are genuine, but yeah, you're right. I agree with you, Tony. It's about relationships, but I would say even there, the relationships are not real. And here's why: because even though some pastors preach about this, there's still this stigma that you have to act and behave a certain way in church. You can't really show who you really are in church out of fear of shame. You can't be real in church, especially if you are homosexual or you, like, I don't know. I think there is a huge facade in churches. But even if you can find a church where that facade is gone or to a minimum, here's the other problem. How does one sit down in a chair or a pew and listen to things coming across to you that you either truly believe is false or to be highly doubted, and in the rare cases even outright dangerous, and just sit there and take it in without saying anything?